Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Dating After Divorce podcast. I have another story in the Remarriage Club series here for you today. Here with me on Zoom, I have Dr. Barbara Katz. She's a physician and life coach, and she's here to tell you about her very exciting Dating After Divorce adventure. Dr. Katz, welcome. Please tell the listeners who you are and what you do.
Hi, I'm happy to be here. So anyway, I'm Dr. Barbara Katz, and I actually am a pediatrician doing child abuse right now, child abuse evaluations, but I also am a life coach, and I coach older women mostly on weight loss during or after menopause, but I also do general life coaching, help women to achieve their goals, help with time management, help with relationships, and just help with all sorts of things.
Yeah, thank you. And I know when we connected earlier, your story was super inspiring to me. A lot of it was because of your age and the fact that you are doing so many incredible things. How old are you as of today?
I am 68.
68 years old. Oh my gosh. Guys, you are in for a really amazing ride. Dr. Katz is an amazing storyteller. So I am just going to turn it over to you and have you start at the beginning. And what I had written down was you met your ex in high school. You both high school and you both went to medical school. You were married 40 years. Could you just go ahead and tell us how it all played out?
Okay, so anyway, my ex and I started dating. Actually, we didn't date till after high school, but we became friends senior year of high school. And we started dating in college and went to medical school together and had a practice together for many years. And we're actually married for 43 years, have 2 grown children and 3 grandchildren. And basically had what they call now a gray divorce. Mm-hmm. We had somehow grown apart. We had different interests, but we always were very good friends. And it was actually an amicable divorce. Mm-hmm. And we are still friends. So we managed to divorce in a way that, why it surprised everyone who knew us, including our children, we managed to divorce in a way that we both came away feeling okay about it. It wasn't something that I was looking for, but but I was able to move on. And so today I'm actually going to be talking more about that. But I will say that it helped to feel that even though I did not really want to be a divorcee, I certainly wasn't expecting it. I was expecting to be married for 50 years at least. Like my parents are now in their 90s and got married after knowing each other for 3 months. And so they've been married now for 71 or 72 years. Wow. So, I expected something like that. So it was certainly a change in my life that I wasn't expecting, wasn't looking for, but I'm an optimistic type person. And I decided I was going to move forward. I had a lot of life to live. I was okay financially, where I was very lucky. And therefore, I decided I was going to go on to a different chapter, which wasn't how I thought it would be, but still had to go out.
How old were you when you got divorced?
I'm going to say 60. The divorce was final in 2018. So it's
about 63, maybe?
Yeah, thereabouts.
You were 63 years old. And I want to highlight that because I work with women who are divorcing. They're mostly in their late 30s, 40s, and then it's like my life is over. I've wasted my best years.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't dated. Yeah. Well, I hadn't dated, anyone since college. And all of a sudden I was there and I knew I would be okay myself. I mean, I've always worked. I've always been a person who has been comfortable doing things. I'm not really ultra outgoing, but I still felt like I would be okay. So that part, financially, I was okay. But still, I knew I wanted to and needed to make some new friends. I was interested maybe in dating again. I wasn't thinking about in terms of remarriage. And in terms of full disclosure, I did not get remarried. I don't know if I ever will. But I'm in a very good, stable relationship right now. But
So
I
after
did
the
know that,
divorce,
yeah.
you felt like just that in between period, did you feel, and I know you said you were pretty optimistic. Did you ever have a moment where you were like, oh no, I think I'd just rather be alone? Or were you always like, no, this is fine. This was a good run and I think I'd like to do it again?
I didn't know if I wanted to get remarried. I was open to having another relationship, but it
Okay.
wasn't like I felt like I had to have one. So I didn't go
Gotcha.
out there thinking I want to date. I need to have someone else. I don't think I had ever lived alone actually,
Mm,
because I went to college and then I got married and then I went to med school and I got married in med school. So I never actually had lived alone. And I didn't mind living alone. I lived alone for a while and it was okay. And I felt like if I needed to, I certainly could. And I
yeah.
made friends who were single, happy people, but I was also open to a new relationship as well.
Right. You said so earlier you said that you didn't have a lot of single friends. So after the divorce, most of your friends were married and then you decided to meet new people on purpose. Could you tell us what that was
Right.
like?
So I started basically, Google is my friend. I started Googling things like divorce and older women. I first heard the term gray divorce. I
Mm-hmm.
started Googling things like older women, people dating,
Mm-hmm.
because again, I didn't know a lot of people my age who were single, let alone people who were dating. And I found out through just Google, basically, I found out about things like meetups, which I really didn't know about when I had been married, but I found out there were meetups and I was lucky. Meetups that were near me. There were meetups for single people. There were meetups that just did things like hiking, which I like, and bicycling, which I like. And there were
Mm,
book clubs. And so I ended up joining some meetups and I started again. I'm not really an extrovert. So I started going to some small events, like a book club
mm-hmm.
at someone's house. I went to a breakfast that I think they had a maximum of like 15 people, things where I could actually meet people. And I started
Mm-hmm.
to meet some other single people just to do things. So at that point, I wasn't looking to date. It's, let's increase my group of friends. Let's find some new friends, kind of thing. And I started meeting a whole bunch of people who lived near me, but I had not known before.
Mm-hmm.
And then I joined a Facebook group that was, I think, women 40 or 45 and older who were divorced or divorcing. And I actually became friendly with some people who lived in my area through that, just people who I would meet for dinner and things.
Yeah.
And I started listening to podcasts. I had never listened to podcasts before then. And I started listening to dating podcasts. Again, not knowing anything about online dating. My daughter
Mm-hmm.
had met her husband through Match, and she had met previous boyfriends through online dating. So and my brother had actually met his wife on online dating too, but
Oh,
I personally
nice.
had no experience with online
So
dating.
you
So
you guys have like what? So
yeah.
you guys have the magic touch. Like online dating works for your family. I love it.
Yeah, I guess so. So, I started looking at some of the online dating sites, listening to lots of dating podcasts from different people. And
Mm-hmm.
I started actually just seeing what it was like. And I was had
Yeah.
nowhere, didn't know where to start, but I did it anyway. And
What was your first date like? The first person you went on a
okay.
live in-person date with?
Okay. Actually, that was interesting because the first one was actually not from a dating site. It was someone who actually connected from there was a Facebook community of like my old community where I grew up. And it was someone who
Mm-hmm.
I had actually gone to grade school with or high school with.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, had not seen him in many years. He had contacted me, and that was actually my first date. So that actually was kind of happened out of almost thin air. It wasn't someone who I kept in contact with, and
How did it
we
go?
we actually it went fine, but it turned out he actually was still married, so that was the not fine part.
Nice.
But the date, yeah, but the date part itself went fine, and it gave me confidence just, the
Right.
fact that there were people out there. So it was a good experience as a date went, but,
Hmm.
it also said to me, you got to be a little more careful. So,
Right. Like maybe checking
mm,
things out. What I mean, and I get that. I know sometimes the fact that a person is networked in or is in your network
mhm,
has us putting our guards down and thinking that
right.
everyone in our network is appropriate. I also experienced that where I dated someone who was an old high school friend and thought, oh, he's networked in, we're compatible,
Mm,
and it turned out to not be not
yeah.
be the case at all. So really our standards we have to keep those standards up, whether we meet them online or we meet them offline.
And I think the other issue was at that point I was separated. I wasn't divorced, and
Mhm.
my ex had. I mean, he had started a relationship with a person who he now lives with while we were still married, but he didn't really like date her till after we became separated. So I kind of thought this other guy was doing the same thing, but he actually really wasn't. So yeah,
Mm.
had my guard down. I learned some things, and I learned about, things like catfishing and some of the terms that people use, which I didn't know. But
Yeah.
it was nice to actually have a nice date that happened with someone who I sort of knew
Mhm.
relatively soon after the separation, just to give me confidence.
Yeah.
And then listening to podcasts and things, and I actually joined I I joined one of these dating coach things, Jen
Mhm.
Burton's thing on Mantourage dating. And don't ask me why I did that, because I don't think at any point she kind of advocated, date kind of seriously, like at least three people at a time. I don't think I ever had three people I was dating at one time. But anyway, I joined that, and she was really helpful. She helped me both get a good dating profile. And she
Mhm.
also somehow, I don't remember how, but I heard about doing boudoir photos.
Mhm.
And she encouraged that just for a kind of self confidence thing. And at that time, I was probably 40 pounds overweight. But I
Mm.
actually found someone who did boudoir photos. I didn't know anyone who had ever done that
Yeah.
personally, or at least whoever talked about it. And I went and I found some sexy lingerie. That was fun too, because I found a place
Nice.
near me, and the person who ran the store was a grandmother type. She was in her 70s. So that was kind
I
of neat.
love it. Oh my gosh. This second half of life business
Yeah,
sounds like a lot of fun.
it was great. So I went and I spent a whole day, and they did, my hair, they did makeup, they had me wearing, I almost never wear heels, and they put me in like 4-inch heels, which I couldn't even stand in. But it was just a lot of fun, and I did the
What did you do
boudoir
with the
photos.
pictures, with the boudoir photos?
Uh they're mostly in a drawer right now. But just the fact I did it and it was an experience.
Has your partner seen
I
them?
know. I have one on the wall, but that one I'm actually wearing clothes in. Uh,
Yeah.
but
All right. I'm just curious. So
he
you start
could see them if he wanted. Yeah.
Yeah. So you did these things to kind of build up your confidence. You were online dating. Um, how did you feel about the dating process? Just being on the app and
Mhm.
swiping and conversing. What was that experience like for you?
Okay, well, I did several of them, both paid and free. I never did anything like Bumble or the ones where the woman picks. I'm not sure why, but I didn't. So
Mhm.
it was interesting. I mean, there was a lot of stuff there that I just instinctively didn't pay attention to. And I started
Mhm.
learning about scammers. So, kind of, if a guy was gorgeous and stationed overseas and was a widower, I automatically,
If he was in a military uniform, you're like,
yes, yes,
okay.
yeah. So automatically, I didn't converse with them. But there were quite a few people who I started talking with. And fairly quickly, I decided that if a person couldn't write a coherent sentence, I really
Mm,
wasn't in the conversation. So they didn't have to be a great speller, but they
okay.
had to be able to write okay. And so that was just a criteria I set up. Now, I had certain dating criteria. Some of them I went by, some of them I didn't.
Mhm.
But I did, I kind of, the only dating site that I did not have any luck with was JD, which
Mm.
is for supposedly Jewish guys. That's the only dating site I never actually went out on a date or met anyone who was even promising. But the other
So
sites, I think I
you're
did it.
Jewish.
Yeah, I
So
am
you're
Jewish, but I
Jewish,
was
you're on the Jewish
basically
side and you can't meet anyone.
no. And I wasn't necessarily looking for someone who was Jewish, but if they
Mhm.
weren't Jewish, they had to be kind of not really religious. So they
Right.
didn't have to be strong religiously oriented. Yeah.
Yeah, and I highlight that just because like women tend to think, at least my listeners tend to think, oh, there's a magic app that like works for everyone, right? And there really isn't. You
Right.
know, it's sort of this general open market kind of thing. And you have to
Hmm.
go in and see what you find and hold your standards, have your ideals, and look until you find that person. And I sense that a lot of women, like you seemed like you were just pretty open, I'll see what happens. And they feel like almost like the apps are attacking them when they don't find that person right away. And there's a lot of anger at the apps don't work, apps are terrible. But I hear you having the same experience as everyone. There are some scammers, there are some weirdos, there's some catfishers, but you didn't let any of that phase you. What was it about the
No,
way you were thinking that, helped you there?
somewhere, and I don't remember where, I had heard that you needed to date at least 30 people before you met someone. So I kind of had that
Mm,
30 number in my mind.
mhm.
And therefore, I figured, and again, I was being somewhat picky. So, not necessarily really picky as far as how a person looked, but they had to be able to speak a certain way. They had to sound
Mhm.
reasonable. I decided they had to live within 2 hours of where I lived.
Mhm.
So, I had certain criteria. They weren't necessarily my ideal person, but I had certain criteria. And then, and there would be people, some of them I actually talked to online for several months and never met for a variety of reasons also. But, I usually would be doing two different dating sites at a time, but I tried
Yeah.
several of them. I did Match, eHarmony, Our Time, which is actually the one that I met my boyfriend on.
That's one of the ones I recommend
Yeah,
for my older ladies now.
yeah, yeah. But there's scammers on there as well.
Sure.
And
Sure.
well, I think I tried Silver something or other, and
Silver
I don't.
singles. Yeah.
Yeah, Silver Singles. I tried. There was another one that was free mostly. I can't remember, but I dated someone from there for a while. I can't remember what that one
Mhm.
is now. I tried a variety of them, and again, I usually met one or two people on each site who I would end up having anywhere from 1 to 5 dates with before either I decide or they decided that it wasn't going to work. So
Yeah. So it sounds like having that number 30 to shoot for helped you stay unattached. Like you were just like,
yeah.
you didn't latch onto anyone as like, oh,
Mhm.
this is the one. You just kind of, let's see how it goes. I know for me, when I was dating, my number was really closer to 100. I was just like, I really didn't expect to meet anyone in the city that I was living in. I had kind of written off my city. So I was
Mhm.
dating just to like practice and meet people. And I was like, I'm getting ready to move in a year. And when I move, then I'll meet someone, in a more diverse area. And I just kept dating one after the other. And for me, it was like 100. So the number was so far away that I didn't even think about it. I'm just going to keep dating. There's somebody out there for me.
And I think partly by doing Jen Burton's program of, date more than one person at a time. Don't just get serious with
100%.
the first person you date, have fun. And so I kind of looked at it a lot like that of, basically it's fun. I'm meeting new people. I
Mm-hmm.
actually met some people in meetups who I dated. Again, I wasn't doing the meetup specifically to meet people to date, but just generically doing some of the activities that the meetups I belong to. I
Yeah.
met people who ended up going out with several times as well.
Awesome. That's really great. So let's get to the good part. How did you meet your partner? And you said you've been together now 3 years.
Yeah, it's going to be 3 years probably this week, I guess.
Oh, awesome. Well, I met my husband this week, four
Yeah.
years ago. Our meet anniversary is on the 24th of February. So
Yeah.
that's very serendipitous. Okay. So how did you meet him?
Yeah. So anyway, it was, again, I don't remember exactly what drew him to me other than, he wrote a decent sentence. He didn't live too far away. He sounded educated, sounded like a nice guy. So our first date was at the Starbucks in the Barnes and Noble. We both were readers, so the fact that we were meeting in a
Mhm.
bookstore was a good sign for me.
Yes.
And I remember, I was sort of sitting down. He went to get, I guess, coffee or mochas, and he put something down that I thought was mine. I put sugar in it. It turned out I put sugar in his mocha, which was not a good start. But
Mhm.
in spite of that, it was a fine date. I mean, it wasn't anything where I heard bells ringing or anything. It was a fine date, enough to do another one. I think our second date was to the Philadelphia Flower Show, which was
Mm.
really fun, where we basically spent the whole day together. And fairly shortly, by probably our third or fourth date, we both had decided that we just wanted to date each other.
Yeah.
So it was kind
What
of
was on your
happened.
mind? What drew you to him? Like when you spent those 3 or 4 dates with him, what made you think, oh, I'm ready
Mm,
to drop well, I know some people called it a entourage. Some people call it the
mm,
circle of guys. I think there's another term for it, which is circular dating. Like,
mhm.
what made you think, oh, I'm dropping all these other guys for this guy?
He was just a really nice guy. He kind of checked all the important things for me. I had
Mm-hmm.
certain things that were more important and less important, but he hit all the important things.
Do
And
you mind
so,
sharing what those things were? What were you looking
uh,
for?
okay, well, I think the first thing is, they had to be educated. That was important to me. They didn't necessarily have to have an advanced degree, but they had to have
Mm-hmm.
some degree of education. They had to be able to deal with a woman who was a physician, which not everyone can. They
Mm-hmm.
had to be somewhere around my age. I didn't want someone who was a lot younger or a lot older than me. Had to
Okay.
be in, decent health. I had to like how they looked. They had to be financially okay. I think
Mm-hmm.
one of the people I had dated shortly before I met him was great online, was a wonderful writer. Turned out this person was almost homeless. And
Mm.
so, that to me was was a big
Yeah.
problem. So they had to be financially okay. Uh, and he was just a really nice, kind person. And he didn't have a whole lot of obvious baggage. Some
Right.
people on the dates, they're just talking about their exes all the time. And it turned out he was actually a widower, but still,
Mm.
he was moving forwards as well,
Yeah.
which attracted me.
Yeah.
And he just was like a really kind person, I think, and he still is. And he's always thinking about other people, what he could do. Oh, and he loved dogs. That was very important to me. So,
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's kind of a deal breaker. If you have pets, if you like
yeah,
animals, it's
yeah.
kind of
I
like,
had I
mm.
had two dogs, and my one of my big hobbies is dog training, and so that was very important to me.
And like you said, kindness. And I've heard that over and
Yeah.
over as I've interviewed women who are happily repartnered or happily married, is that just that, and you cannot fake kindness. You can't fake it. You can fake the moment of doing something nice for someone or doing something romantic for someone, but kindness is like you can't fake it. And I think we all need to have that on our list of
Hmm.
we're going to look for
Hmm.
someone who's kind and shows kindness all the time.
Yeah. And I don't know that it was actually specifically on my, it was one of the first things that I noticed about him, and it's still
Mm-hmm.
still true to this day. And again, the
Yeah.
dogs were important to me. There was one person I dated for a while that ended up, that was the reason we broke up, because he decided that he couldn't deal with dogs. Deal
Wow.
breaker.
Yes, for
Yeah.
sure. So how, and you said you have 2 grown kids. How have they handled, you know, mom and dad, I guess, dating again?
Yeah. Well, because when we separated, my ex essentially already had a girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
They were kind of very supportive of me from the very beginning,
Mm-hmm.
and they all like my partner, and they've dealt with things okay. I mean, it took a while for everyone to
Mm-hmm.
get used to the new normal, but I mean, even after I separated, my ex and I went on two big trips together, including one where we actually visited our son and his family out in Colorado. This was when the
Mm-hmm.
eclipse was going on. We were going to Wyoming. So because we were doing okay together, I think that helped them to adjust.
Yeah, that's huge. I think a lot of
Yeah.
times, and I tell my clients, listen, when you're okay, your kids will be okay. Because sometimes they're trying so hard to get the kids okay, but they're doing
Yeah.
it from this place of high anxiety and a lot of shame and a lot of pain of their own. And I'm like,
Hmm.
you got to put your own gas mask on first before you can help your children. That's
Yeah. So
awesome.
I think they're happy that, I'm okay. My parents are still alive. I think, again, they're happy that I'm okay. I know my parents, who are more on the old fashioned type, I think they're very happy that I have a partner.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think they would have been as happy if I was living alone, but I didn't do it for them. You
Right,
know?
right. And sometimes,
Yeah.
parents just want you to be happy. So to
Hmm.
them,
Hmm.
being alone probably looks like you're unhappy, even if because I know you were very happy single. They probably
Hmm.
didn't believe you when you said you were fine.
Yeah, yeah. But I definitely, I enjoy. I did. I traveled when I was single. I didn't want to
Mhm.
travel myself, but I found some groups that are women who travel together
Mm,
just for women. Some of them are single, some of them are married or partnered, but for whatever reason, the person they're with doesn't want to travel or can't travel. And I may still go on some trips with them at some point. But
yeah,
oh, and that's the other thing. I wanted someone who hopefully liked to travel because I like to travel. So
yeah.
that wouldn't have been a deal breaker as long as I could travel, though. Yeah.
Right. So now, given that you were married so long the first time, 43 years, and now you've been repartnered 3 years, and I know
Hmm.
you can't compare the two because you had very different experiences the first time. You had
Right.
kids, you raised kids, you built a practice, and you don't have to answer this if it's not comfortable. Like, but do you feel like your partner is more compatible with you than your ex-husband, or are they just completely different experiences?
I think they're very different experiences. I mean, my ex and I, again, even after we decided to separate, we still lived together for about 6 months after that. And
Mhm.
not only did we live together, but I mean, we cooked together, we did some things together, we traveled, we took two big trips. We went to Egypt
Mhm.
and we did this big driving trip around the kind of Wyoming area and things. So they're
So for you, it
different.
was more of a just a change, the next phase, rather than this
Yeah, yeah.
break in a journey or this devastating thing that happened.
Yeah, again, it wasn't what I planned, but or I guess we saw my ex and I saw a marriage therapist either two or three times. And
Mhm.
one of the things he said, which at the time I didn't necessarily agree with, but now I see, is he said, sometimes you've just reached the end.
Mm.
Relationship just the chapter's ended kind of thing, that nothing necessarily has gone wrong as much as it's time for something new or different.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, in this case, I can totally see that because, and as you know, our life expectancy is just probably
Yes.
way, way
Hmm.
longer than um, when you know people were marriage as it looks today was designed,
Sure.
right? Like
Hmm.
marriage way back was designed differently. People married multiple people. It was like a whole different ball game way back then. But in the recent history, where marriage is this one man, one woman scenario, we've also increased our life expectancy maybe by like 20, 30 years.
Right.
And it makes sense that something like this could happen.
And are we really meant to be with just one person for 50, 60, 70 years?
Right.
it's,
So
it's
many
hard to live
questions.
with just one person. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of things do bear investigating, whether on whatever we choose. Like I am my husband, I hope my husband and I stay together forever, but I don't want to assume that I know everything or that the way it is, quote unquote, is the way it
Right.
is, right? For everybody else or for the world, just because that's the way we think it's always been. So I really appreciate you sharing your story and being so
Hmm.
open and just really being an inspiration to those who are your age and those of us who are younger. And we can see that, oh my gosh, there's just so much more life to live and so many more adventures that we can have. What advice would you give to women who are currently dating on the apps?
Pretty much the main advice would be have fun. Don't go on any date thinking this is the person you are going to marry or live with forever, that they are necessarily the one. Just look at it as you're meeting new people. Even if this person isn't the one, they may have a friend, they may have a cousin, they may have a brother. People know people. Use it as experience and have a good time. But, you know, whatever you do, be true to yourself. You know, don't become another person for someone else. And I think it's useful, and I've always told my kids this as well, be able to support yourself in some way. Don't rely on someone else to be everything for you. If you don't have job skills, get some job skills. You know, find a way that you can be okay, whether you're yourself or partnered.
Wonderful. Dr. Katz, thank you so much for sharing your story. I really appreciate it. Could you please tell the listeners again what you do and where they can find you?
So I coach older women on weight loss and also general life coaching with how to achieve goals or manage whatever kinds of concerns that they might have. You can reach me either through my website at www.barbaralkatz.com, or you can, I also have a private Facebook group called Weight Loss and Menopause, and you can ask to friend me and I will be happy to have you join the group.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And everyone listening, all of those links will be in the show notes for this episode. So follow Dr. Katz. She is a shining light, and I know you will adore getting to know her. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time and attention, and we will see you next time.